Japan's work-life balance is legendary. Legendary in the same way unicorns are legendary. Everyone has heard of it. No one has actually seen it alive. Compared to Singapore, Japan's so-called work-life balance is not a lifestyle. It's a marketing slogan, a comforting bedtime story told to foreigners, HR departments, and people whose income comes from dividends rather than salaries. Here's how the myth works. Japan looks calm. No shouting bosses. No aggressive emails at midnight. No one throwing chairs like a Wall Street movie. Instead, you get something far more efficient and far more dangerous. Slow, silent extraction of time, energy, and future earnings. In Singapore, long hours are transactional. You work more, you get paid more. You see it in your CPF, your bonus, your property value, your investment account. Pain is acknowledged and compensated. In Japan, long hours are spiritual. You work more, and you are rewarded with moral satisfaction, team harmony, a polite nod, maybe a Y3000 convenience store bento subsidy if the company is feeling generous this quarter. This is not work-life balance. This is work-life anesthetic. The office that never ends. Japan's workday does not end at 6 p.m. It dissolves. You don't leave. You linger. You don't clock out. You fade out. Meetings extend not because decisions are being made, but because leaving early would imply independent thought. Emails arrive late at night, not because something is urgent, but because someone higher up is still awake and expects proof of loyalty. And here's the trick foreigners miss. The overtime is often unpaid, the stress is constant, but the salaries are fixed. Which brings us to the part advertisers love, labor arbitrage disguised as culture. Why investors love Japan's balance. Japan's work-life myth exists for one reason only. It keeps labor cheap while productivity stays high. That's why Japanese companies look incredible on paper. High EPS stable margins, massive internal reserves, low labor volatility. From an investor's perspective, Japan is paradise. Workers absorb inflation, currency depreciation, and workload increases quietly, while shareholders enjoy rising stock prices and buybacks. Singapore companies, by contrast, pay more. Labor is expensive. Employees know their market value, which means profits fluctuate and margins are honest. Japan's system is cleaner for capital, messier for humans. That's why global funds love Japanese equities while Japanese households barely invest. You can't dollar-cost average into the stock market when your disposable income evaporates into commuting time and exhaustion. Real estate tells the truth. Want to know which country actually has work-life balance? Look at housing. In Singapore, property prices are insane because people have money, credit access, and long-term earning confidence. People complain, but they buy. Condos, REITs, investment units. In Japan, housing is cheap for a reason. A 35-year mortgage makes no sense when your career effectively expires at 50. You don't build wealth when your income curve flattens before your kids finish school. A society with real work-life balance produces homeowners. A society with fake balance produces renters with long commutes and no savings. The polite trap. Japan doesn't shout at workers. It waits them out. No dramatic burnout. Just decades of low-grade fatigue. You wake up tired. You commute tired. You return home tired. You repeat this until retirement, assuming your company doesn't quietly restructure your position first. This is why Japan's productivity per hour looks decent, but lifetime earnings look tragic. Singapore burns you faster, yes, but it also lets you exit with capital. Japan burns you slowly and sends you home with memories. Who benefits from this myth? Corporations with massive cash reserves, foreign investors hunting stable returns, consultants selling Japanese efficiency, media outlets that confuse politeness with well-being. Who doesn't benefit? Workers' families. Anyone trying to build assets before aging out of the system. Calling this work-life balance is like calling a padded cell a wellness spa. If this already feels uncomfortable, good. That means you're still paying attention. In the next chapter, we'll compare actual working hours, hidden overtime, and why Singapore's hard life quietly produces more freedom than Japan's gentle grind. Before you move on, do the algorithmic ritual that keeps this channel alive. Like the video, subscribe, turn on notifications, not because it's polite, because visibility is the only leverage left. If Japan really had work-life balance, the numbers would scream it. Instead, they cough politely and look at the floor. Let's start with the stat Japan loves to export: average working hours. On paper, Japan looks almost civilized, shorter than the US, sometimes even shorter than Singapore. This is where the scam begins, because Japan doesn't reduce work, it relabels it. Overtime that doesn't exist in Singapore, overtime is visible. It's written down, paid, taxed, and eventually reflected in CPF contributions. Pain leaves a paper trail. In Japan, overtime is invisible. It's called self-improvement, team coordination, voluntary presence, atmosphere. If your boss stays, you stay. If your team stays, you stay. If you leave early, congratulations, you have just committed social suicide. None of this shows up in official statistics, which is why Japan's work-hour data looks clean while workers look exhausted. Japan didn't solve overwork, it buried the evidence. Singapore's brutal honesty. Singapore is not pretending to be your friend. You work long hours, yes, but every extra hour has a reason tied to output, bonus pools, performance reviews, and promotion timelines, and most importantly, exit options. In Singapore, long hours are temporary for many people. Grind hard, accumulate capital, move roles, start a business, invest in property, or leave the country entirely. In Japan, long hours are permanent. You don't grind to exit, you grind to survive. One system treats labor as an investment phase, the other treats labor as a consumable. Follow the money, always. If Japan's work-life balance were real, household balance sheets would reflect it. They don't. Low household financial assets, weak participation in equity markets, minimal exposure to global investments, cash hoarding driven by fear, not strategy. People with time and balance invest. People who are tired hoard cash and pray. Inflation doesn't notice them. Meanwhile, corporations sit on record internal reserves, not reinvested, not redistributed, just stored. This is not cultural modesty. This is capital extraction from labor, and investors love it. Why global funds keep buying Japan. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Japan is a dream market if you don't live there. Workers don't strike. Wages don't rise meaningfully. Currency weakness boosts export profits. Corporate governance reforms look good enough for headlines. From a fund manager's desk in New York or Singapore, Japan looks disciplined, efficient, and stable. From a worker's kitchen table at 10:30 p.m., it looks like unpaid overtime and reheated convenience store food. Same country, different balance sheets. The commuting tax nobody mentions Japan doesn't steal your money directly. It steals your time liquidity. 2-hour daily commutes, standing trains, transfers that feel like cardio workouts, time you can't invest, time you can't monetize, time you can't recover. Singapore workers complain about pressure. Japanese workers don't complain because they're too busy commuting. If time were money, Japan would be running a shadow tax system. The polite silence premium. Here's the final trick. Japan's system works because people don't complain loudly. Silence lowers costs. Silence keeps wages flat. Silence keeps share prices stable. Singapore workers complain loudly, online, in public, to HR, to recruiters, to the market. That noise raises labor costs. And that's why Singapore looks stressful and Japan looks balanced. One country externalizes stress, the other internalizes it. Guess which one pays better? If you think this is uncomfortable now, wait until we hit career ceilings, age discrimination, and why Japan's system quietly deletes workers after 40. That's Chapter 3. Before the algorithm forgets this video exists, like it, subscribe, share it with someone still believing the myth. Visibility is currency, and currency beats politeness every time. Japan's work-life balance works beautifully until you age. Then it vanishes with the same efficiency as your promotion prospects. Here's the rule nobody prints. Japan doesn't manage careers, it manages life cycles. And once you pass the useful and cheap phase, the system quietly prepares the exit. Singapore asks, what can you still produce? Japan asks, why are you still here? The mid-career cliff. Nobody warns you about in Singapore. Mid-career is when things finally start to make sense. Your salary compounds, your network matters, your experience converts into leadership, consulting, equity, or mobility. In Japan, mid-career is when the floor opens, your pay plateaus, your title freezes, your responsibilities increase but your authority does not. You are expected to mentor juniors who will never replace you, while management debates how to reduce headcount without looking cruel. This is not a failure of individuals, this is design. Why Japan hates expensive workers. Japanese companies love stability, they just don't love you becoming expensive. A worker in their 20s is obedient and cheap, a worker in their 30s is productive and manageable, a worker in their 40s is a balance sheet liability, so the system does what any cost-optimized structure does. Promotions slow, transfers increase. Reorganization begins, early retirement packages appear. Officially, nothing is wrong. Unofficially, your expiration date has been noticed. Singapore firms fire you bluntly, Japan suffocates you politely. Same outcome, different aesthetics. Why work-life balance is a lie without mobility. Here's the key difference nobody wants to admit. Work-life balance without career mobility is meaningless. Japan gives you predictable hours, but locks you into a narrow lane. Changing industries is rare. Changing functions is suspicious. Changing companies after 40 is treated like a character flaw. Singapore lets you move companies, move industries, move countries. Balance is not about leaving the office early. Balance is about having options. Japan offers stability in exchange for obedience. Singapore offers pressure in exchange for leverage. One lets you rest, the other lets you escape. The financial consequences, nobody shows you. This is where finance matters and why advertisers love this topic. If your income stops growing at 40, your investment capacity shrinks, your property options narrow, your risk tolerance collapses, your retirement math stops working. Japan's system assumes loyalty will replace compounding. It doesn't. Singapore workers complain about stress, but many still accumulate assets. They invest, they buy property, they build buffers. Japanese workers often don't, because by the time they realize the trap, they're already too tired to climb out. That's not work-life balance, that's delayed financial panic. Why corporations? Call this harmony. Harmony is cheap. Harmony means no wage wars. Harmony means no mid-career poaching. Harmony means workers absorb shocks quietly. From a corporate finance perspective, Japan is brilliant. From a human perspective, it's a one-way tunnel, and investors know this. That's why capital flows in even as people mentally check out. The silent trade-off Japan offers: predictability, politeness, low visible conflict. In exchange, it takes ambition. Upside second chances. Singapore offers none of the comfort, but it offers something more valuable: optionality. In the next chapter, we'll talk about why Japan's balanced life produces exhausted households with no assets, while Singapore's stressful life keeps spitting out investors, founders, and early retirees. That's chapter 4. Before this gets buried under cat videos and real estate ads, like the video. Subscribe. Share it with someone who still thinks politeness pays the rent. Attention is capital now, and capital always chooses truth eventually. Let's stop pretending this is philosophical. If a country truly has work-life balance, it shows up somewhere measurable. Assets, investments, property, capital formation, not vibes, not politeness, not cherry blossom metaphors. And this is where Japan's myth finally collapses under basic arithmetic. Balanced life, empty portfolio. Japan's workers supposedly have balance. So explain the balance sheet: low household equity exposure, minimal participation in global markets, tiny risk appetite, a cultural obsession with cash that earns nothing while inflation eats it alive. This is not financial conservatism. This is exhaustion disguised as prudence. People with energy invest. People with clarity take risk. People who believe in their future buy assets. People who are tired just survive. Singapore's workers complain constantly, yet somehow manage to buy property at insane prices, invest in equities and REITs, start side businesses, leave jobs they hate. That contradiction should bother you. The lie of enough Japan sells the idea that enough is virtuous. Enough salary, enough stability, enough quiet. It sounds mature. It sounds enlightened. It's also incredibly convenient for companies that don't want to raise wages. In Singapore, enough is not a value. It's a warning sign. If you're not growing, something is wrong and you start looking for exits. One society treats ambition like a disease. The other treats stagnation like a problem to fix. Guess which one creates wealth? Why free time is useless without money. Here's the part travel bloggers never explain. Free time without disposable income is not freedom. It's just empty hours. What exactly are you supposed to do with this balanced life? Travel? With what money? Invest? With what surplus? Rest? From what future? Japan gives you evenings off but robs you of momentum. Singapore takes your evenings but hands you leverage if you play it right. Balance without upside is sedation. Corporate profits, personal fragility. Japanese corporations are doing fine. Better than fine. Margins stable. Cash reserves massive. Stock prices rising. So where did the money come from? Not innovation miracles, not productivity explosions. It came from labor discipline, wage suppression, and workers absorbing every shock silently. Japan's balanced society runs on unbalanced distribution. That's why the stock market smiles while households don't. Why this myth persists. Internationally, foreigners love Japan's work-life story because it absolves them. It says, you don't need to chase money. You don't need to compete. You don't need to be uncomfortable. It's the perfect fantasy for people who already have capital. But for anyone starting from zero, this myth is poison. You cannot balance your way out of a low-income trap. Singapore's ugly advantage. Singapore doesn't sell balance. It sells results. The hours are long. The pressure is real. The expectations are high. But the system assumes one thing Japan doesn't. That workers want to convert effort into assets. Not loyalty points, not thank you emails, not ceremonial bonuses. Assets. In the final chapter, we're going to say the quiet part out loud. Japan's work-life balance myth exists to keep labor calm while capital compounds elsewhere. That's chapter 5. Before the algorithm decides this is too uncomfortable, like the video, subscribe. Share it with someone still choosing comfort over leverage. Politeness doesn't compound. Capital does. Now we say the quiet part clearly, without the politeness tax. Japan's work-life balance myth is not an accident. It is not cultural misunderstanding. It is not Western ignorance. It is structural design. The myth exists to keep labor calm while capital does what capital always does. Compound quietly somewhere else. Calm workers are cheap workers. Japan didn't choose balance. It chose predictability. Predictable workers don't demand raises. Predictable workers don't job hop. Predictable workers don't threaten margins. They show up. They endure. They accept. And in exchange, corporations offer stability narratives instead of financial upside. This is perfect for shareholders. You get steady profits, you get disciplined labor, you get minimal disruption. You also get a population that slowly disengages from wealth creation without ever revolting. From a capital perspective, it's elegant. From a human one, it's devastating. Why Japan is an investor's dream and a worker's trap. Look at the contradiction. Japan's stock market attracts foreign money. Japan's households avoid risk. Japan's companies hoard cash. Japan's wages stagnate. That is not coincidence. That is alignment. The system works because workers believe balance is the reward. They stop asking for more income because they're told more income comes with chaos, stress, and moral failure. Singapore never told that story. Singapore said work is pressure, but pressure buys options. Japan said work is harmony, but harmony buys endurance. One creates investors, the other creates survivors. Why gentle life is the most expensive lie. A gentle life that doesn't grow is not gentle. It's expensive in slow motion. Every year without income growth compounds against you. Every year without assets narrows your future. Every year of quiet compliance widens the gap between labor and capital. Japan didn't reduce stress. It redistributed it across decades. By the time people notice, it's too late to pivot. That's not balance. That's delayed damage. Singapore versus Japan. Final accounting Singapore. High pressure, high turnover, high income volatility, high asset formation. Japan. Low visible conflict, low wage growth, low mobility, low household wealth. One system is loud and stressful. The other is quiet and suffocating. The difference is not culture, it's incentives. Who this myth is. For Japan's work-life balance story works wonderfully if you already own assets, you earn dividends, not salaries, you observe from abroad, you benefit from stable margins. If you are building from zero, it is a trap dressed as wisdom. Balance without leverage is obedience. Balance without assets is stagnation. Balance without mobility is just time passing politely. The final line. Nobody likes hearing Japan does not optimize for human flourishing. It optimizes for capital stability. Singapore does not optimize for comfort. It optimizes for capital formation. Choose your poison, but don't confuse one for the other. And if this series irritated you, that means it worked. Before the algorithm buries this under productivity hacks and fake minimalism, like the video, subscribe, share it with someone still confusing politeness with prosperity. Because balance doesn't compound, capital does.